Are you ready for the Accent Training Podcast Blast? Well, listen up. From now until the end of 2024, I'm going to be releasing 2 accent training audio lessons every week for you to train with me. Now, that's a lot of accent training lessons coming your way, my friend, so you need to make sure that you're following the Accent Training Podcast, because then you'll be one of the first around the world to get this training. So if you haven't already, hit follow now and enjoy another accent training lesson, my friend. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Accent Training Podcast. My name is Pat. I'm your personal American accent coach, and I'm here to prepare you today for one of the most annoying questions that you are asked as a non-native English speaker who has to speak with Americans regularly. Can you repeat yourself? Sorry, I didn't get that. Could you say that again? Being asked this question is probably one of the things that's brought you here today, right? You're tired of being asked that question. You want to put that problem behind you, and so you look for accent training. Let me tell you about an experience of my own here in Monterrey speaking Spanish. So I was at a market here in Monterrey a few years back. I wanted to buy a new backpack or whatever, to wear to my English classes that I was teaching. I didn't have much money. I just needed something cheap. And I was looking around through these bags in one of these tents, and I found a few that I liked. This was now an opportunity to use a new phrase that I learned. And so I went to the vendor, ready with this phrase. I had been preparing it for this market. I was ready to go. And I said, "¿Cuál es el más económico?" Which is the cheapest? And he said, "¿Qué?" I said, "¿Cuál es el más económico?" He said, "Ay, güero, no te entiendo." Look, white boy, I don't understand you. My face just went red like a tomato. I felt frustrated and embarrassed that this guy wasn't understanding my carefully rehearsed Spanish. Now, a friend was with me, and he saw that I was struggling. He came over to help. He said, "Hey, what are you trying to say? I can translate for you." Yeah, just what I needed, right? An audience for my incompetence. And so I just told him, "Don't worry about it." And that evening, I was way too frustrated to speak any Spanish for the rest of the night. I didn't even try. And I didn't even get the backpack that I went to the market for in the first place. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't understand you there. Can you say that again? Do those questions ever interrupt your nice day? Your train of thought? Do they make you second guess everything you say? And do they take the confidence out of your words, out of your voice? I know how it feels when you get asked that. That's what keeps me working so hard to guide you through it. It's one of the most annoying questions to be asked, especially when you know you're using the right word and you feel like you're saying it perfectly. Even after 9 years here in Mexico, I still get asked that. Now, in my case, this happens because there are sounds in Spanish that don't exist in English. And I'm not using them in the right way that Spanish speakers listen for. Now, back in the market, that was about 7 years ago, maybe. I don't let this limit my Spanish-speaking opportunities anymore. Instead, I've adapted this ABC approach to help me use these mistakes to my advantage and improve my speaking. This is the ABC advantage. A, acknowledge your ignorance to the culture. B, breathe deeply. C. Create new voice habits. So if you want to stop being a victim of your mistakes and you want to use them to your advantage too, then listen to this whole episode all the way through and take a few notes, because I'm including a few golden nuggets here that are going to be assets on your journey to becoming a native level English speaker. Beginning with A, you've got to acknowledge your ignorance. It's important to acknowledge that a word or a phrase which is used in one culture can have a totally different meaning in a different culture, even if it's the same language. You can even say something extremely offensive without meaning to. In Monterrey, for example, chaqueta means jacket or coat in English, while in Mexico City, chaqueta it's a little discourteous, to say the least, and you certainly wouldn't want to say it around children. And these are two cities within the same country. Imagine if I were to travel to Argentina or Spain. Totally different countries with totally different language patterns, but the same language. And now if I travel to Argentina or Spain, I have to recognize that the words I'm using are not familiar to the locals there. And if I'm not understood, it's probably because I'm using a word or a phrase that the local culture just isn't familiar with. And in your case, maybe you grew up in a country with an English system that's more influenced by British English than American English. And then you come into contact with Americans, and the words and phrases and the way that you're pronouncing them resonates more with the European sound. Or maybe you studied English a lot as a child, but you didn't have opportunities to actually speak with native English speakers, and so your words are currently by the book, we'll say, a little bit too perfect for actual conversation. This is just because you would sound very literal all of the time when you're speaking and have a tough time adding nuance to your words or shades of meaning. That doesn't mean that your English is bad. It just means that you've picked up phrases and words from a different culture or from a different educational source the person you're speaking to isn't familiar with. This has even happened to me in English. Like when I was 18, I went and visited my family in Yorkshire, England. One day I went to the movie theaters with some cousins of mine. I got my ticket, went to the concession stand, and there was a young lady there wearing a ponytail, and I ordered a large popcorn and a soda. And she asked, "Would you like salt or sugar on your popcorn?" Now, I understood every word that they said, but I had never heard those words in that combination before. I was confused. In Canada, you can request extra butter, or you can request to have caramel corn instead of popcorn, but nobody asks you if you want salt or sugar. Sorry, can you say that again? Would you like salt or sugar on your popcorn? I don't think I'm understanding you here. Now, my cousin, who was watching the whole thing, cut in and explained that I could choose to have either salt or sugar added to the popcorn, or I could go without. I could just have it how it is, plain. And I got my popcorn with a little bit of salt and we moved forward. Thank goodness I had an interpreter there, right? Now they speak English in England. We speak English in Canada, where I'm from. And I understood every word that this woman said, but I just couldn't make sense of it. So even if you are speaking English at the level of a native speaker, you will be asked to repeat yourself. If you're at that level, then you've just got to consider that the words you're saying may not be acknowledged in this culture. And then you've just got to either ask for clarification or for the appropriate words that are needed in this culture. Or even just take a minute and look it up for yourself. If you learn something from the Australian culture, look up how to say, "Good day, mate," in California, in the California culture, and you're going to find something. Use ChatGPT. That should help. And once you get your answer, try again with another American or with the same person. So A, acknowledge your ignorance. You may be ignorant to the culture of the person that you're speaking with and using a word or a phrase that they're unfamiliar with. Now, what if you're not ignorant? Prepared for this, just like me buying a backpack, and you're ready to go. Well, then we move to B, breathe. All right? This is a frustrating moment. However, there are a lot of cognitive benefits to breathing deeply. You give your brain more oxygen, and you're going to have an easier time processing this information. This is going to help you get your thoughts together, and you're going to continue the conversation without getting flustered, like I did, or feeling undermined, like people aren't giving you the recognition you deserve. When you breathe deeply, you give your voice more fuel to sound clearer and confident. And so do this with me right now. Take a deep breath in through your nose, as deeply as you can, and push your belly out as you do it. Now, once you're full, don't hold it, but release the air through your mouth completely. Breathing like this, pushing your belly out, engages with your diaphragm, a muscle under your lungs, and we need it to make your voice stronger. So with me now, do 3 deep breaths through the nose, push the belly out, don't hold your air, just let your lungs fill up and let them empty out. That's great. We're changing the way that your body uses air to project your voice clearer. Now take one more breath in and make this sound with me. One more time. Hold your tongue low in your mouth, low in the back, low in the front. Breathe deeply in. American English speakers listen for vowels that start strong and then fade off weak on the end. And so we breathe in deeply, pushing the belly out, using the full lung capacity. And then project your voice on your vowel sounds when you speak in English. Now, vowel sounds are the sounds like a, e, o, I, u, a, and many more. There are a lot of vowel sounds, but is the most commonly used vowel sound. So we've got A, acknowledge your ignorance. Take accountability. It's okay to make a mistake. B, breathe deeply. And now C, create new voice habits. Now, when I say that the sound is the most commonly used vowel sound, that's because it's the resting tongue position for American English speakers. Our tongues are low in the back of the mouth and low in the front of the mouth, around the level of your bottom teeth. Spanish speakers and many other Spanish and many other languages have a resting tongue position that's a little higher in the mouth. They'll go eh, Or I have a Telugu speaking student who pointed out she feels she goes more, ah. This is because those languages need a different tongue position to pronounce words perfectly for that language. In both Spanish and Telugu, you put a lot of power into the consonant sounds. You use a lot of force from the mouth muscles, while the vowel sounds are a little bit shorter. And so their tongues are higher up and ready to go to articulate sound clearly in that language. Now, every language has a resting tongue position. It's something that your body created during your own development to speak your own language quickly and efficiently. But whatever your resting tongue position is, it may not apply to English. Some languages do have resting tongue positions that apply to English. Farsi speakers in particular tend to be highly proficient accent training students with vowel sounds for that exact reason. Now, I've learned to raise my tongue position when speaking in Spanish. It changes my voice in a major way, and I don't always remember to do it. But when I do, it makes my Spanish much clearer. Así mi voz cambia, y es porque levanto mi lengua más hacia la parte trasera de mi boca. My voice changes like that, and it's because I raise my tongue higher in the back of my mouth than in English. This narrows the space in the back of my mouth and makes my voice a little more nasal. Now, I've adapted this by living with a Mexican family for 4 years and trying to say things the way that they do. So much so that I find myself sounding like my mother-in-law half the time I'm speaking Spanish now. If you want to communicate this language proficiently, you have to be using the habits that American English speakers are listening for. One habit you want to start doing immediately is breathing in deeply, right to the belly, so that you're using your full lung capacity, and widening the space between the back of your tongue and your throat. Use that as a point of reference to create space there so that you can feel the difference between and ah or eh. If you get a sound like oh, you've gone too low. Your tongue is just at the level of your bottom teeth. That habit alone accounts for a major amount of American accent training. It's very difficult to develop over time, but if you project your voice clearly and leave a wide enough gap for your voice in the back of your mouth, every word that you say to Americans will be clearer, even if you don't pronounce it perfectly. So your ABCs of what to do when someone asks you, can you repeat that? A, acknowledge your ignorance to their culture. It's not a big deal. You don't have to be ashamed. This is a learning opportunity. B, breathe deeply to gather your thoughts and power your voice. It's essential to engage with your diaphragm, the muscle under your lungs, to speak in a way that communicates certainty and confidence. And C, create new voice habits that match the language you're communicating in. In the American accent in particular, the sound is the highest priority vowel sound to develop. Now, a lot of you did it just from listening to me. You picked it up. It's not a difficult thing here. You can make that sound. The difficult part is projecting your voice clearly when you do it. Not just going, but letting it start strong and fade off. Now, of course, this is the Accent Training Podcast. So this is where you're going to find out which other habits need to be created to start seeing progress here. Now, my recommendation is that you check out episode number 193 of the Accent Training Podcast and start with the American Pronunciation Handbook audio lesson. Listen to the whole audiobook and complete the training. This will get you started with some essential American accent training habits with high-quality training materials and guidance. And it's all for free here on the Accent Training Podcast. I'll leave a link in the description so that you can check that out. However, if you've already listened to every episode up till this point, I know there are some super fans out there, then make sure that you're following the Accent Training Podcast, because our next episode is going to be of a great conversation that I had recently with a couple of American accent coaches. We were discussing some training strategies and how we can get the best experience possible for our clients. So make sure that you're following, because you don't want to miss that. In the meantime, take your training forward with the lessons that you've learned here today. Have a good one.